I'm very excited to introduce Simon Mainwaring.
Welcome, Simon!
We first, how brands and consumers use social media to build a better world.
Let's dive in. For those of you I haven't met, I'm the CEO and founder of a company called WeFirst. We're a strategic consultancy that builds brands that exceed the expectations of business, people, and the planet. So we do the strategy work, the culture building work, and the impact storytelling for global enterprises, sustainability leaders, and really, really exciting startups. And we've been doing that for 13 years. And the core thesis is we need as many people as possible to work together quickly to the greatest collective benefit, which is why it's called WeFirst. Leadership is more important than ever, but also that leadership has never been in need of more reimagination, more reinvention, more re-engineering. And I want to explain why. This is a snapshot of what all of our lives have been like over the last 2 years. Multiple crises, from COVID to the climate crisis, to supply chain, to BLM and the protests around the world, and now Ukraine. And what's interesting about all of this is that there was concurrent. I don't think any of us have ever had any leadership experience where you had so many seismic challenges all at once. And here's the interesting thing about them. They're not sitting out there in the future statically waiting for you to arrive or us to arrive. They're compounding out in the future, hurtling back towards us in the present. And this is creating a hockey stick of expectation on business. And by that I mean it's not sequential. We didn't have COVID, and then Ukraine, and then climate, and they had a clear beginning and ending. And nor is it linear in that the impact on your life just increases consistently. It's exponential. And what we're starting to feel is the G-forces of that as the expectations rise from all stakeholders, from employees to consumers to investors. And what does this mean for you, sitting in your office every day or at home? It means that the luxury of choice as to how far and how fast you change is soon going to be ripped out of your hands. We can no longer sit there, arguably complacent, saying, you know what, I'll make a change when my competitor makes a change. Or until it's regulated, I'm just going to do business as usual. It's coming our way like a freight train. And what you need to do is you need to act like a gyroscope. You know those things that sort of remain steady while everything shakes around them? Like a Steadicam, where you're shock absorbing as a leader these compounding and concurrent crises. So it's my deep belief that the future of leadership will be defined by your ability to manage multiple crises at once. Let's dive into what I believe is a critical mindset shift for that to be possible, for all of these different investments that you're making of time, capital, resources to work together synergistically. And why I call it a mindset shift is because you can imagine if you've got new goals based on the same mindset, you're going to only have so much success in achieving those new goals. But if you've got a new mindset that better sets you up to accomplish those goals, you're going to get that much further. And the way that I express that mindset shift is to lead with we, which in simple terms means everybody working together to create the greatest benefit to the largest number of people on the planet. And you might say, why is that important? Well, in simple terms, people want to buy from, work for, or invest in companies doing good. Because every single one of us wakes up every morning and pulls out their phone and looks at the horror story that is the news headlines. I mean, who here doesn't, I scroll through the headlines now. I'm like, I don't want to know anymore. It's enough, man. It's bad enough. I couldn't even sleep last night. No, there's more. It's absolutely absurd what's going on, the mental toll and anxiety and fear that it engenders in everybody. But, the biggest antidote and the thing that inspires hope is action. But it needs to be a new type of action. It needs to be collective action. You need to lead with we. And here's the biggest mistake I see all the time. They go, look, we're a certified B Corp, or we're committed to SDGs 3, 12, and 15. Or they'll say, here are our ESG commitments, or here's our biannual ESG report. And all you're doing is building the B Corp, ESG, or SDG brand, and no one knows anything more about who you are. You're letting the tail wag the dog. Instead, those commitments, whether it's ESG, whether it's SDG, whether it's a B Corp score, are social proof of who you are in your own right. And you can point back to that to legitimize your self-stated claims about your role in the world. But to do it the other way around will only put you in a situation where I've seen time and again, where after 2 or 3 years of authentic commitment and dedicating precious resources to ESG commitments, they go, no one knows anything more about us. Even our employees are still in the dark about what we're doing. And that's because you're pointing to your ESG report, your B Corp score, your SDG commitments, and saying that's who we are, instead of defining who you are and letting it be social proof. Does that make sense? Don't for a second think that any of this loses sight of our fundamental responsibility to drive growth. And here's how it works. Your purpose defines the movements your brand will lead. And those movements define the actions you will take across your entire organization and across all brand touch points. And those actions will build your business. So, movement making is not a new way of marketing. Movement making is a new way of being in the world as a brand. And it affects all aspects of your business, as one would imagine when you understand that a purpose statement is why you exist. It affects everything from product marketing to internal culture, product creation, your communication strategy. But at no point do you ever ask the question, well, how do I allocate my budget towards my movement making and my product marketing over here? They are one and the same thing. And to not be clear about that is to miss the whole point of this exercise. Your purpose informs everything you do as a company and as a brand. But there are very tangible reasons to be optimistic, and let's look at a few of them. Firstly, older mindsets are giving way. They're giving over the reins of business to new mindsets. Does anyone feel that in the last 18 months, 2 years? Raise your hand if you feel like there's been a shift. Right? It's taken on a life of its own that we haven't seen before, as someone who's been coming to SB for over a decade. Secondly, we have so many coordinated climate efforts going on around the world. Major powerhouses with deep pockets and resources forming new coalitions that are really taking this head on. Then we also have these exponential technologies that can provide solutions at scale, whether it's AI, robotics, blockchain. On top of that, we have the inspiration of legions of younger entrepreneurs. Raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur who's leading a company that's going to take on the world. Raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur in this room. And also those online, we're going to look at you with our mind's eye. Look at you gorgeous creatures. Thank you. Thank you. Let's give them a hand. In addition to that, we have innovation that is not only inspired by nature, but serves nature, as I mentioned before. And finally, we have COVID, which for all of its tragedy has been the rudest wake-up call, global wake-up call that anyone could have imagined. No one is better equipped or better positioned to lead this charge than you in this room and you watching online. And one thing is true. This is not the end of something. This is the truly miraculous rebirth of business. Appropriately painful, but business that will serve nature rather than stealing from nature. And nature in turn will dazzle us with its innate regenerative capacity. And as we start to restore this symbiotic relationship between humanity and the natural world, we are going to fall in love with nature, with the planet all over again, rather than look over our shoulders to the mistress Mars or whatever planet we're going to colonize. So the possibilities in front of us today for the next decade are simply breathtaking. So let's all lead with we. Thank you.